It's been a few years since we last took a look at this tool, but over that period of time, these folks have made some serious improvements, and it's time to take a second look at saw gear. First, let's review something really basic. How to set up your saw gear and calibrate it so you're cutting right on when you're making butt cuts. The easiest method is to put a short piece of material up against the stop and make a cut. Then measure that cut. Oh look, it's 15 1/16 strong. I'd like to make it 15 1/16 right on. So let's bump this over. We'll use the increment button and bump it over just a little bit. 32nd of an inch, we'll make another cut. Now let's measure it right out here. Oh, there we go. 15 1/16 right on. So now we'll enter that into saw gear. All we have to do is press the D button right here, which is the dimension button, and enter in 15 inches and 1/16. Press the start key, and now saw gear is calibrated exactly, no matter how long or how short the piece is that you want to cut. In my last review of the saw gear a couple years ago, I noted how important it was that your saw pivot at exactly flush to the face of the fence. And the Capex happened to do that, but other saws I checked didn't. Well, saw gear has made an improvement, so it doesn't matter now where your saw pivots. You can adjust the saw gear to read off the pivot point of your saw no matter where that point is, which is really handy if it's off the face of the original fence, or if you want to read off the face of an auxiliary fence like I do on my miter saw, or whether you have a DeWalt saw or a Bosch saw or a Hitachi saw, it won't matter, and it's very easy to make that adjustment. Before adjusting the pivot point, make sure you've entered in the thickness of the material that you're cutting. In this case, I'm going to be cutting 1/3. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, so I'm going to push the W button, and it's already set for 3/4. If you haven't done that, right now you could just push 3/4 and the start button, and it's ready for the next operation. To adjust the pivot point, press the dimension key and then the W button, and saw gear will give you a message. The message says, ensure saw gear calibration is correct. Press the W button one more time, and it'll say, place the square end of the stock against the stop. Right here, right against the stop. Let's do that. Press the W button one more time, and it says, cut 45 degrees left and enter the back length. We'll swing the saw to the left, and we'll make a cut. The length of that piece is 16 1/2 inches, right to the short point. So we'll enter that length into saw gear. 16 inches and 1/2. And now it says place the square end of the stock against the stop. So we're going to do it again, right up against the stop. You can press the start button or the W button, and it says cut a 45-degree right-hand miter and enter the back length. Let's make that cut now. First, we swing the saw to a right-hand miter. Now let's measure the back of this piece, and it measures 15 1/2 right on. So let's enter that next. So all we have to do is enter 15 inches and 1/2 and press the start button, and that's it. We've just calibrated saw gear precisely off the pivot point of my auxiliary fence. Now there's another improvement that saw gear has made. They've included a new program in the electronics here so that you can use a cut list and enter in the angles and the measurements right off the list, almost the same way you do on a job site. The new program is called Crown and Miter Pro. Let's work through that next. So let's start by entering in this first piece. It has on the right-hand end, the end that's going to hit the stop first, it has a butt cut on the right-hand end. To enter the Crown and Miter Pro, push the W button twice. Now it's going to ask you what the angle is. See, it says angle equals. That's for cutting crown molding. That's where you'd want to enter in the spring angle. But here, we're just cutting baseboard, so we'll leave it at 0. If it says something else right here, now's the time to enter 0 when you're cutting baseboard. Now we're going to work with these 3 buttons right at the top here. Don't be confused by these little icons on here. That's not what they represent when you're in Crown Miter Pro. When you're in Crown Miter Pro, the X here, the first button, that's the right-hand corner. The Y is always the length of the piece, and the Z button is the left-hand corner. So it really works off of which corner comes up against your stop first. The right-hand corner comes up against my stop first because I have my stop on the right-hand side of my saw. So I push this button first, and I have to enter the angle. It says it's a 90-degree angle, but is it an inside corner or an outside corner? Right now is when you can make that choice. This little O right here can be toggled until it reads an I for an inside corner, or toggle it back to an outside corner. In this case, this is a butt cut, so I'm just going to push 0 for that corner, and then I'm going to push the length. Now it's going to say to enter the length of the piece. That's 22 inches and 5/8. And now I'll push the last button here, and that's the left-hand corner. And it already says that the angle equals 90 degrees, and it says it's an outside corner, which is exactly what we want. Now, if we wanted to cut an inside corner, we'd push the toggle button here. We'd toggle this little increment button, and it's going to come up with an I for inside corner. And while we're doing this, notice that there's a little arrow over here on the far right. If I toggle this back to an outside corner, see how that arrow changes? That arrow is telling you which way to swing the saw. For an outside corner, you'd swing the saw to the left, and if I toggle this back to an inside corner, it tells you to swing the saw to the right. So now I just push the start button. The stop runs out exactly the right amount. We swing the saw to the left so that we can make an outside corner. And now let's measure that piece. 22 5/8 of an inch, dead on. Now let's enter the second piece. The second piece has an outside corner on the left. It measures 16 3/16, and it has an outside corner on the right too. And this is the first corner we're going to cut because it's going to come up against the stop first. So the first thing we do is we enter in the X number here. That's the first angle. Remember, it already knows it. The saw gear remembers your last cut, and it automatically adjusts for the mating miter. So it's already set up for that outside corner. So let's enter in the length of the piece. It's 16 inches and 3/16. And let's enter now the left-hand corner, which is also an outside corner. And it's already set up for an outside corner. And we'll push the start button. The saw gear comes up. It's exactly the right spot. All I have to do is swing my saw, make that outside corner, butt it up against the stop, swing my saw in the opposite direction, and now let's measure that piece. I'll hold my tape right there at the short point. And it measures 16 3/16 dead on. So now, let's do the third piece here. It has an outside corner on the right. It measures 12.5 with a butt cut on the left. So the first thing we'll do is we'll push the right-hand corner. Remember, this is the right-hand corner, and it's an outside corner, so it's already set up. Saw gear remembered that. The length of this piece is 12 inches and 1/2. And now we want to enter it in the last corner, the final corner, final angle. That's an outside corner. Nope, this is a butt cut. We'll put 0, and we'll push the start button. The stop came up. Now this corner here is an outside corner, so I'm going to swing the saw, make an outside corner cut. Put that outside corner up against the stop, swing back to 0 for a butt cut. Now let's check the length of this piece. 12.5 inches, dead on again. Now let's cut this last piece. It's got a butt cut on the left, it's got a cope cut on the right, and it measures 19 1/8. And this piece is typical. I mean, this is the most common piece you cut inside of a room when you're running baseboard. At least I do. I try to always cope the right-hand end of baseboard. So with this piece here at 19 1/8, the first thing I'm going to enter is the first corner that comes up against the saw. But wait a minute. Look at this piece. I don't even have to use Crown Miter Pro for this piece because I'm measuring off the long point of an inside corner. That's the same as cutting a butt-to-butt piece. All I have to do is enter in 19 1/8. I'll push 19 inches and 1/8. Press start. The fence will run out. I can make my inside long cut. That's my inside corner miter that I can cope, butt that up against my fence, swing my saw to 90 degrees, make my cut, and let's measure that one. 19 inches and 1/8, absolutely dead on. Well, that should give you a pretty good taste of what the new and improved saw gear is all about. It's still a very pricey add-on for any miter saw and not something that every carpenter can use. It's a tool for high-end jobs where you'll be set up for weeks, and it's great for pre-cutting material in a shop too, like for coffered ceilings, which I recently did in my own home. If you can afford the price tag, saw gear can save you time and money, and not just for making repetitive cuts, but for cutting anything from crown molding to baseboard to chair rail to casing and cabinet parts too. It's a lot faster and far more accurate than pulling out a tape measure and a pencil for every single cut.